What is up, my friends? It is Saturday night. I hope you're having a wonderful day and you are very welcome along to tonight's late night agenda. I think it's about time I have my say on the Alexander Isak situation because it's starting to get a little bit annoying at this point. So I'm going to give Newcastle fans my honest, unfiltered opinion on the whole situation tonight. We're going to discuss Luke Edwards and his absolutely shocking, shitty nonsense article about the whole situation in the Telegraph. We'll call that out for what it is. Absolute bollocks. We'll talk tonight about Giovanni Leone. We'll, of course, wish farewell to Darwin Nunez, who completed his move to Al Hilal today. And sincerely thank you, Darwin, for everything. And look, didn't work out. No problem in that. See here what we can do, Newcastle fans. It doesn't have to be bitter when you recognise that it's the right thing for your club. But it's okay. We'll talk about that as well. Now, look. There is a lot that I want to get off my chest tonight, and I've been nice, Craig, for most of the summer, in my opinion, but today it's starting to just make my blood boil a little bit because Newcastle still seemingly haven't learned their place. And what I mean by that is Newcastle's fans are deluded. Newcastle's fans, and it's not just Liverpool fans that think this, by the way. I've been chatting to Manchester United fans who had to put up with Newcastle fans throughout the Sesko debate as well, and what they don't seem to realise is that they aren't a big fish and that what they think is going to happen and what is actually unfolding in front of their eyes is very different. And I would say, respectfully to Newcastle fans, look at your sources a bit better than our friend Luke Edwards, who was just basically being a mouthpiece for what the club want to put out there. And that's okay. This happens in football, but I don't have to buy it. Liverpool fans don't have to listen to it. And quite frankly, some of these accusations that are doing the rounds are bordering on slanderous at this point. So let's put a couple of things right tonight and talk about this Isak situation. So I'm going to let people come in and chat fill up a little bit. And then I'm going to really have my say on it because it needs to be said. It just does at this point because I'm sick of it. We've tried to be polite and nice. We've tried to sit back and sympathise with Newcastle fans, but they don't seem to realise that the mess isn't because Liverpool came a knocking. The mess is because your club is being run like a fucking shambles. And if you don't see that, Newcastle fans, you have bigger problems. If you want to cry arse about the state of your summer transfer window, look inwardly and not looking to blame the big bad wolf, Liverpool, in this situation. So we'll talk about a few facts tonight as we know them. And I want to start off with, well, a post that caught my eye from Mouth of the Tyne, might as well be called Mouth of the Gobshite, because it says, Newcastle owners are furious of the way Liverpool have behaved this summer. They were baffled with their initial £110 million bid, which was nowhere near the club's valuation of 150. So let's talk about this a little bit, shall we? Furious at the way Liverpool have behaved. And how exactly is that? How exactly is that, my petulant little friends? By making a British record transfer bid for your striker once and then walking away? That's behaving what? That's how football works, you morons. That's how this shit happens. So let's put this right. You fuckers need to start eating some humble pie and realising that you are Newcastle. You aren't Liverpool. You aren't Manchester United. You are fucking Newcastle. And your owners, as you say, are furious at the way Liverpool have behaved. So furious, they went and gave us £53 million for Darwin Nunez. That'll teach us. That's taught us a lesson. You know, teaching us a lesson there by taking Darwin off our hands. Well done. We've learned our lesson on that one, Newcastle. If there's lessons being taught here, I think it might be us saying, you could have had Ekatike, but you thought you were Billy Big Bollocks, and now we have him, and we will end up with Alexander Isak. You know it, I know it, he knows it, Howe knows it, your fucking board knows it, and the rest of you fans need to wake up and realise it is going to happen. Your owners, and I hate to break this to you, don't give a fuck. They don't give a shite about you folks in Newcastle. They thought that they were getting a club that they could buy their way to success. And the rules have kind of gotten in their way a little bit. So again, stop trying to throw Liverpool fans and our club under a bus, because your club is a shit show behind the scenes. Not our problem. And this belittlement of Liverpool for making a British transfer record bid. Let's remember that. This isn't like we came in and said, here, have 70 million quid. They offered 110 to 120 million. And your club were stupid enough to say no. And your window has been a shit show. So let's talk about why we're here, shall we? Why is Alexander Isak so intent on leaving Newcastle? It isn't because of Liverpool destabilising him. It's because of broken promises and lies. It's because he wasn't given a new contract. It's because he told your club months ago he wanted out. But you're so badly ran behind the scenes that you're scrambling around now trying to get 6th, 7th and 8th choice strikers. Meanwhile, Isak's getting closer and closer to the exit. Your own manager basically came out and said it isn't possible to turn Isak's head back. This whole situation has been one that Liverpool fans are just sick of, because we've tried to be respectful. We've tried to be sympathetic for the situation, but you clowns just won't let it rest. So Luke Edwards and any of these other mouthpieces for Newcastle Football Club need to stop writing what is nothing other than a tantamount to fucking fairy tales at this point. The truth of the matter is, you have an unhappy player who we will end up getting, whether it's this year, next year or whatever. It's going to happen. You're going to get a load of dough for it, and he's going to get to play for a club that will win shit. And if that doesn't sit well with you Newcastle fans, tough shit. That's the lay of the land. Deal with it until you become a big club. But you ain't now. So know your fucking place. It's getting ridiculous at this point. State of them. Think they can say what they want, do what they want, belittle who they want, just because their own club is a shit show behind the scenes. Tough. Tough. You want to protest? Protest your own fucking owners. You want to moan? Moan about your own board. But don't moan at a club asking once, can they have a player, and then backing off. Ain't our problem that Isak's unhappy. Ain't our problem that you can't fulfill your promises to your own players. Look internally and stop trying to blame everybody else. You fucking babies. The state of it, all of it, absolute joke from start to finish. Pussies. Stop being children. It's ridiculous. Every set of fans I speak to are laughing at the way Newcastle have dealt with Sesko, with Isak. United fans have been messaging me in their droves saying, I didn't realise quite how touchy these Newcastle fans were until they lost out on Sesko. Just deal with it. Your club isn't where you want it to be. Your club is a club that could get there, but it needs to do the right things at the right times. And one of those is selling a striker that doesn't want to be there for a record amount of money. It's not rocket science. You know it, but you choose to just listen to people who are giving you bad advice. Everybody knows what's going to fucking happen. Same way we told you what was going to happen with Ekitike. But no, you were having both of them in your team. We were going to have Isak and Ekitike. How has that worked? How has that worked, my Newcastle supporting friends? Is Ekitike wearing a Newcastle shirt? Nope. He's waiting for Isak to come and join him at Liverpool, where he'll win Champions Leagues, Premier Leagues, FA Cups, League Cups, maybe a Ballon d'Or. Stings, doesn't it? Tough. You deserve every fucking mouthful, because the disrespect that you've shown is just pathetic. Now grow the fuck up. So, like I've said, had my say, got it off my chest. Every word of it, true, genuine, from the heart. I'm sick of it. Sick of it. We deserve respect. This is just bollocks from a club and a set of fans that, quite frankly, don't know what's going on. It's just ridiculous. Grow up. And by the way, before any arsehole tries to jump on social media and go, if I showed you some of the messages that we've gotten, some of the posts aimed at me personally for being a Liverpool fan, all because your club's not run well behind the scenes. Well, march, protest, take it out on the owners. You know, the people who actually run your club, but just not very well at the minute. So, again, great lesson you taught us. Thanks for the 53 million for Darwin. That's really shown us who's boss. Right, let's move on. Darwin has gone to Saudi Pro League. Yes, he has. The club confirmed that one tonight. Liverpool Football Club can confirm Darwin Nunez has completed a permanent transfer to Al Hilal, subject to international clearance. Everybody at the club would like to thank Darwin for his contributions and wish him and his family all the best in the future. As would we. Look, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I'm not happy that the Darwin situation has come to an end, but it's unfortunate. We all wanted it to be a success. When he came in, we were all hopeful. Didn't work out. It happens. The club have moved him on, and he'll get shown the respect from me he deserves for being a servant to the club. So Darwin, all the best in Saudi. Thank you for trying. Sometimes these things just don't work out. No bad feelings on my side from it, and I'm sure many Liverpool fans as well. You know, it's just one of those things, and I hope him and his family have a good, bright future. Right. This has been a window of two halves. I really thought the way it started and the fact we bought Wirtz, we'd smashed it, but now quite worried. I wouldn't say I'm worried yet, Chris. I'm a little bit frustrated around the centre-back situation, to be honest with you, mate. Yeah. Are you showing scores on WhatsApp? No, we don't post scores into WhatsApp, mate. What we're doing is putting the player ratings links in. So if people want to contribute their player ratings at the end of the game, the link will be going into the WhatsApp, mate. But I know spoilers are horrible, so yeah, I try to keep them down as well, Matt. Kathy said, I can put up with the banter, but for someone at Newcastle FC TV Live to say Jota was insurance fraud, I didn't see that, to be fair, Kathy, so I can't really give an opinion on it. But it's just gotten to me today. When you see stuff like this rubbish written here via Luke Edwards of the Telegraph, Newcastle owners are furious at the way Liverpool behaved. No, let me translate that for you. Newcastle's owners haven't got a fucking Scooby-Doo what they're doing is the problem there. And the infighting and the battles behind the scenes at Newcastle are what caused the situation with Isak. It's not Liverpool trying to buy him. It's the fact that his broken promises over and over and over again. And your own media, your own newspaper journalists are talking about Newcastle's project being nowhere near what it was supposed to be from the outside. Not us. So if you want to cry arse, look inward, because it ain't everybody else's fault here. El Harvo said he was crap, but legendary shithouse. It was just one of them things, didn't work out. When he came in, I think many of us had really high hopes for Darwin. And there were glimpses, ironically, the Newcastle game. That's, somebody says, what's my favourite moment for Darwin? It's probably that one. We'd no right to win that game. And that kind of, I guess that's what grew my frustration as well with Darwin, because you've seen what the man was capable of. He had pace, power, directness, so many attributes, but just couldn't tie it together on a consistent basis. So, it'll be interesting to see how he develops, spend some time over at Al Hilal. Obviously a good coach there as well, and Simeone and Zaghi. And it'll be interesting to see if he moves back to Europe at some point, or, how he gets on over in the Saudi Pro League. But genuinely, it's just unfortunate. Just one of them things that didn't work out. David said, no panic from me. What's this? We will get our targets, I think you're trying to say. Look, I'm not panicking. I'm a little bit frustrated because, as our friend Chris said at the start of the stream in the chat, we had a great start to the window and we went in early doors, did incredible business. And yes, it was going to be a point where some sales were going to come, but the one thing I just can't get my head around is the centre-back situation. Whoever the target would have been, it doesn't make sense to me as a fan that we've let it go all summer. Whether it's Marque, Giovanni, Leone, and we'll talk about both of them tonight. It just, the ESAC situation I get, that is kind of out of our hands, and it is based off a time frame that isn't really in our control. But we can control the centre-back situation, and we seemingly are choosing not to. And, we're going into next Friday with an unsure, unfit, unprepared Joe Gomez, and then Canade and Van Dijk as our only senior centre-backs. Just seems like we're leaving ourselves short. Rems said Newcastle are not a big club. Absolutely shameful. They could be, but the way they're behaving over this, and it's not just us. I thought maybe there was something between us and them, but I've been hearing from my United supporting mates as well, and the grief that they've been putting up with because of the Sesko battle that Newcastle lost. Like, it's not our fault. It's not United's fault that Newcastle can't attract a player for whatever reason. Maybe look internally and ask why. Is it the project? Is it the money? Can't be a lack of Champions League football. They have that. So why are players turning them down left, right and centre and going elsewhere? United beat you to a player and United have no European football. Why is that? It has to be because what's being pitched publicly and what's happening behind the scenes aren't lining up, as the journalists have written. Itachi. I love you, Craig. Thank you. Stevie, well said, sir. Angus, thank you. Look, I take no pleasure in ranting at people, but I'm not going to sit back again and just see it happen over and over and over and see us belittled. I've seen shit like they're thinking of suing Liverpool. For what? For what? I don't see any articles with you fellas cry arsing about Visa, which is the exact same situation, by the way. Where's the fume there, Newcastle fans? Oh, you're all hypocrites. Gotcha. But see, the difference between me and you guys is, I know I'm a hypocrite. I wear that with a badge of honour. But you guys are mocking us for a £120 million offer and then applauding while Leo and Visa did the same thing. And you're cheaping out. We're actually willing to pay top money. You're cheaping out. But yet we're the embarrassing ones? We're the ones destabilising a player? Grow up. Do we sign Isak poll? No probs, dude. Let's ask. Let's ask that one. Right, so there we go. Do we sign Isak? Your wish is my command, sir. We'll get back to that in a while. Rory. Had to be said, mate. So, let me tell you a little story, Rory. I was out tonight having dinner with my son and my wife. And we were sitting there and I got an alert on my phone. And I looked down and I met with this absolute bollocks from Mouth of the Time that said, Newcastle owners are furious at the way Liverpool have behaved this summer. They were baffled with their initial £110 million bid, which was nowhere near the club's valuation. So, in your little entitled world, Newcastle fans, a first offer has to be at your valuation, does it? That why you're lowballing Brentford for Visa? Or again, are we admitting you're hypocrites? And furious? At what? Never publicly talking about the player? You haven't heard our manager or anybody associated to Liverpool Football Club talking about Isak publicly? Have you? No. Maybe, just maybe, the fault here lies inwardly because Isak told you months ago he was leaving this summer. Before Liverpool declared an interest, before we made an offer, Isak told Newcastle, I'm not signing a new deal. I don't want a new deal. You lied to me. I want out. Whose fault is that? Maybe look inwardly, again, instead of cry arson and throwing around threats. You can tell you're a club that aren't used to being in the limelight. You can tell you're a club that aren't used to dealing with big transfers because this one has been a shit show from start to finish from your side. Sudeep said, big fan, must say, you always are here. You are so passionate about Liverpool. Love your late night streams. Thank you, dude. Keep doing the same. You're mentally strong, and I so appreciate your consistency. Thank you. I hate when I rant, Sudeep, but sometimes it just has to be said. And the club that we all love is being belittled over and over again by people, and it's not being belittled for a valid reason. It's being belittled because they're so butthurt that their club is being steamrolled over, that a player who has done so well for them isn't wanting to play there anymore. Now, I'm not saying Liverpool have an entitlement to go and get Isak. Absolutely not. But this has been a very simple situation. Is the player for sale? Here's an offer. No, okay. How is that acting badly? It's nonsense. They know it, you know it, I know it. It's all bollocks. Ekitike wins trophy before Newcastle sign a striker, said Bradley. Tracking the core of the stuff and more, said, as a Liverpool fan, Isak's not worth 100 million. Too inconsistent and injury prone. We need to spend on Rodrigo and a quality centre-back. So, if you go back to, I guess, the start of the summer, I said I think Isak's probably a 90 to 100 million pound player. But I knew that anybody, in Liverpool in this case, would have to pay a premium. And I didn't know what Liverpool are willing to go to, but it had always been pretty well documented that this figure of 150 million pound is one that they pulled out their arse, basically. Because if you look at the journalists talking about it, they all say the same thing. Nobody from Liverpool's side has ever talked about 150. That's a number Newcastle have just pulled out their arse, probably thinking it was a fuck you number, but ultimately it's a number that nobody's going to pay, and you're going to have a player who, I don't know, maybe if you drag him kicking and screaming into next season, will lace up a pair of boots and put in half-arse displays for you. But ultimately, the damage has been done now with Isak, and you're never going to see the best version of him again in a Newcastle shirt. Simple as that. Whether he goes to us, Arsenal, Real Madrid, Barcelona, it doesn't matter. The days of Newcastle seeing the best of Isak are over. And it's not our fault. It's your own fault. Simple as that. Take my money for that smackdown. Thank you, mate. Appreciate you. Look, I don't like being ranty. I know people probably think I do, but I don't. But I also don't like false statements that are just full of shit, you know? And without calling out any one particular journalist, the coverage of this has been pretty fair. Craig Houlden covered it really well. Keith Downey covered it really well. Luke Edwards, well, hasn't had the greatest of summers. Let's just say that. And on this one, again, he can write what he wants, but I don't have to agree with it. I don't have to listen to it. I don't have to sit here and see my club belittled from some tin pot institution that just doesn't know how to operate at the biggest level. Not our problem. Newcastle should be happy. Nunez owns their ground, said Harry. Yeah. By the way, let's move away from Isak for a moment if I can, because we've a lot to go through tonight that we haven't had a chance to speak about. But that line really just gets me, though. The more I read it, the more it makes me laugh. The Newcastle's owners are furious. Yeah, so furious they were begging FSG to invest in the Saudi Pro League. So furious that they gave us 53 million quid for Darwin. Oh, that'll teach us. That'll teach us. We've learned our lesson. Please don't come back in and offer us a load more, though. Don't be coming in offering us 70 million for Costas, whatever you do, lads. We don't want it. It's not welcome here. Don't teach us another lesson, please. We're quaking. We're shivering in our boots here. We'll go in for Gay after the Cup tomorrow. I hope so. But today, you know, if you're looking at the centre-back situation, it feels more like the target of the day seems to be Giovanni Leone, based off a lot of the reporting. So there's been a couple of things today about Leone. To the Mercado web, I don't know if I believe this one or not. Now, I always take things with a pinch of salt if there hasn't been multiple outlets claiming the same thing. But they say, and our friends at LFC Transfer Room posted this, Parma turned down a 35 million euro offer from Liverpool for Giovanni Leone, holding firm on their 40 million euro valuation. I don't believe that, to be honest with you. I've no doubt Liverpool are interested. That's pretty straightforward. But I don't know about an offer having gone in. I feel if an offer had gone in, Romano or, I don't know, Joyce, Ornstein, somebody would have mentioned it. Fabrizio Romano did say Liverpool are becoming more and more interested in Giovanni Leone. Their interest in the defender is getting stronger and more concrete. There was another piece then late tonight about Leone that I wanted to bring to your attention. Where was it? This one. Parma still hope to keep Giovanni Leone for one more season and maybe sell him in 2026. But the interest from Liverpool has been growing in recent days. Several Italian teams are keeping an eye on him. Like I've said before, an 18-year-old to come in to be what would be probably a senior centre-back, you know, because we've got 3, so we need 4. So, I don't know. It's a difficult one. I can see all the benefits of Mark A because of his age, his profile, his Premier League experience, his versatility. But then again, if this kid is as good as has been made out to, maybe it's going to look like a bargain if you do get him in. I just don't know if he's ready for the here and now. You know, the question that I would ask myself is, if Van Dijk or Ibu picked up an injury, would we be ready to go? I don't know the answer to that with Leone because he's just 18. But both, I see a couple of shouts in the chat for both. I wouldn't say no, folks. Right, what's this one? Romano also just said this, by the way. If Liverpool can't get Isak, Barcola will be their top target. But at the moment, focus remains on Isak. At least this week. See what happens next week. So, just to kind of finish up my little rant on Isak. For me, personally, and I definitely don't claim to speak for an entire Liverpool fan base here, but for me, I've always said I'm relaxed about Isak. If we get Isak, great. He'll be a brilliant addition. If we don't get Isak, I'm not going to lose a second sleep over it. So, whatever drama Newcastle fans think this is going to give us Liverpool fans, the answer is none. Liverpool fans are kind of split on Isak, especially when you talk about the price. If we hadn't brought in Ugo Ekitike, we'd probably feel a lot more nervous right now, but we have an up-and-coming young striker in. If we add another one in who wants to come, brilliant. But let me make this really clear. Most Liverpool fans I've spoken to aren't thinking this make or breaks our summer. Not one stretch. If we don't get a centre-back, that'll cause problems. But Isak is just a forward, and if it isn't him, we'll move on to somebody else. But it isn't going to make or break our season, our window, or anything. It's the cherry on the top. And for what it's worth, I still think we get him. And again, if you think not, ask why Newcastle are still trying to sign 2 strikers. And that's what I'd love to ask Mr. Luke Edwards of The Telegraph. Why are they trying to sign 2 strikers then? If Isak isn't going to be for sale, why are they so intent on bringing in 2? Obviously, Callum Wilson had to be replaced. That was straightforward. But Newcastle are trying to get 2 in. And why is that? Well, we know why that is. Because they're going to sell Isak. So stop, again, treating your readership and football fans like we're idiots. We can see through all the PR bollocks from the football clubs. So, again, if you want credibility as a journalist, start writing the truth. Like the likes of Craig Hope, Keith Downey, really good reporters who haven't always agreed with on this, but they've been sincere and they've been honest. And sometimes, yeah, a bit of frustration creeps in, even from a journalist like Craig Hope that night when he was probably a bit upset because he cares. Good journalist, great coverage, very fair and balanced. Then we have the other lot who will write any old bollocks that a club tells them just so they can have their little nuts tickled. But again, you want readership? You want people to believe what you're saying? Stop treating people like idiots. Done that one. This one from Jason. Nunez got the speed, the tricks, but the Falcon type accuracy is what lets him down. How does Darwin fix it? I don't know, is the honest answer. I've tried to think about this, Jason, a few times, like why it didn't work out at Liverpool for Darwin. Because honestly, if we went through pretty much every aspect of his game, a lot of them tick the boxes. But sometimes, whether it's a league, a style of play, it just doesn't click. And it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Darwin start banging 35 a season somewhere else. But it just didn't work for us. And, you know, that's why I was so clear that we needed to draw a line under it. It wasn't an anti-Darwin Nunez thing. It was just a common sense thing. It just wasn't going to work out. And, you know, it wasn't going to benefit anybody to go through another year of frustration for Darwin as a player or for us as fan base. It just, it was best to just, you know, draw a line under it and move on respectfully like the way it's gone. Nevelin said, surely no Darwin sale without Isak being 100%. So I would tend to agree with you, Nevelin, but I also would have said no Kwanzaa sale unless there was a centre-back ready to go. And so far, we've not seen that come in. Now, I guess maybe Arne could be sincere in feeling that we've got options and cover there, but we definitely need another forward. You know, we've sold Darwin, we've lost Diogo, we've sold Isak. We've sold Diaz, and Chiesa will probably move on. So bringing in one new forward and young Rio isn't going to cover 4 spots. So we definitely do need another forward. Hopefully it's Isak, but if it's somebody else, no problem. As long as he's on the manager's list and Arne's happy, then I'm happy. Nick, how are we, sir? Said Newcastle need to climb the food chain. United are still able to make big signings after their worst Premier League season because of what Sir Alex Ferguson built over 20 years. So you can tell, Nick, that they're not used to big transfers or being in the spotlight as much, because the way that it's all being handled between the fans, the club, some aspect of the media, it's been straight to vitriol and finger pointing and blame and accusations and threats, and it's just so tin pot. It's embarrassing. Even their own sporting director or one of their executives a year back or so said sometimes to take 2 steps forward, you got to take 1 step back, and they did. They could have taken that step by selling Isak. They could have had Ekitike at this point, perhaps, but ultimately they've created a mess, and now they're looking around trying to blame the big bad wolf, which is Liverpool in their eyes, on their whole summer being a shit show. Well, it's not our fault. All we did was try to sign one player that you said no to, and we haven't bid since. So missing out on Delap, Cunha, Sesko, Ekitike, Trafford, Gay. None of this is our fault. So perhaps ask why you can't attract the players. Is it money? Is it ambition? Is it the manager? Is it... I don't know. I don't know what it is. But it ain't our fault. If there was no Liverpool, would I be a Sunderland fan at this point? No. Like I've always said, if there was no Liverpool, I probably would have been a Newcastle fan, because I actually thought they had a great sense of humour and a decent worldview. But this whole situation has really surprised me with a lot of Newcastle fans. Not all of them. I'd never tar a whole fan base with one brush, but it's just so unnecessary and vitriolic. What have we got? So Lee said, I see literally zero reason to panic. 3 senior centre backs, plus Grafenberg and Endo covering is fine. It's not fine though, Lee. Like, it's not. Let's be honest about this. And here's why I don't think it's fine. Let's say Virgil was injured for a month, and we know at the minute Gomez isn't fully fit, but let's even say he is. Are you comfortable going into a run of big games, shoehorning an Endo or somebody in at centre-back? Because we wouldn't buy Endo to play centre-back, so why should we be making do when we've created the mess ourselves at centre-back by selling Kwanzaa? So if you sell Kwanzaa, who was supposed to be the Matip replacement, who was never replaced, I think it is inviting a bit of pressure. And certainly when we haven't even kicked the ball in the season yet and Gomez has already been injured, and Kanade, let's not forget, still hasn't signed a new contract, I think uncertainty in the centre-back position is perfectly fair at this point. Not panic, I get you. Still time. Definitely say the panic part, I get you. But I think it's a very fair criticism not to be happy that we haven't found a centre-back yet. Dino said, sorry, if I was Newcastle, I'd have a different view. So, no problem with that. But the thing is, mate, just say he's not for sale and don't sell him. To say he's not for sale and then the manager to be saying otherwise, lying about injuries as well. You know, if he was getting treatment over in Sociedad, why was there no Newcastle medics with him? So it's got nothing to do with Liverpool. Isak feels let down by Newcastle regardless. We just happen to be the club trying to buy him. But read what Craig Hope has said. Read what Keith Downey has said. Read what other journalists have said. This goes back a long, long way. In fact, I'm going to help you out a little bit. I'm going to read something for you that summarises all of this and lets you know that these problems were there before Liverpool even came knocking this summer. So let me just read this out for you. Bear with me 1 second. Because I do understand and appreciate where you're coming from. And, you know, a club standing firm is admirable. But you don't stand firm and then start shopping for replacements and then tell the world that nothing's happening. Like, it's all a little bit tin pot. Right, so this is what Melissa Reddy wrote the other day. And I think this summarises the whole thing really well. She said, the frustration for Alexander Isak and his camp is they feel they were very clearly and respectfully informed Newcastle of the forward's desire to explore a fresh challenge well ahead of the summer. In doing so, it afforded Newcastle the chance to attack the market on the front foot and secure a quality replacement long before it got to this messy point. It's not Isak's fault. Newcastle have had a nightmare, missing out on so many of their top targets. If anything, it probably hardens his belief that their approach and ambition doesn't align with his. There is no solid recruitment foundation. I feel sorry for Eddie Howe, the players and the supporters. Newcastle are in the Champions League for the second time in 3 years and secured their first domestic trophy for 70 years. They are a structural mess off the pitch. Many of the club point to the power struggle that ousted Guendouzi and Staveley as the root of several issues, especially the lack of communication and human touch with the exit of the latter. Given how this window has gone, can Newcastle actually find a replacement for Isak? If they force him to stay, can they get the maximum out of him in the absence of that human touch? If they sell him, can they be trusted to revive a British transfer record and spend it wisely? So, like I've said, Newcastle fans, you want to point the finger here, look inwardly, because as Melissa Reddy said, all of this was told to Newcastle before the window, well in advance. The player told Newcastle he wanted out. So, as I said, we're not the big bad boys here. Newcastle just can't keep a player happy, and Newcastle have been a bit of a mess behind the scenes by all accounts. Where were we? Which one am I on? Angus. This one. I think we need 2 attackers and a centre back, but I can only see us getting Isak and Gay. Look, I'd be more than happy with Isak and Gay. But I just don't understand the delay. Look, the Isak thing, fair enough. You know, we can't make that situation move any quicker. But the centre-back one for me, Angus, is one that has been in our control all summer. And for what's been a very good summer recruitment-wise, this one just feels a bit, I don't know, a bit weird. This one. Is there any truth that we're going for Visa? I don't think so, no. I think it was an Empire of the Cop story, if I'm not mistaken. And it definitely feels like a bit of banter there. Because I seen a similar thing the other day. And let me just read the piece out for you, just so we can discuss it. So, yeah, Empire of the Cop apparently have said, if Liverpool are interested in beating Newcastle to the signature of Brentford's Johan Visa, now that they can't sign Isak. Look, Visa isn't good enough for Liverpool, respectfully. I totally understand him wanting to go to Newcastle and wanting to play Champions League football. It's a huge bonus in anybody's career and a huge opportunity for Johan Visa to go to Newcastle and play Champions League football. So I get that he's pushing for that. And at this point, it's yeah, it's a weird one. Ben said Craig complaining who couldn't guess. Why are you fuckers always thick as pig shit, Ben? Why is it always you dumb fucks try to troll and you can't string a sentence together? It always makes me laugh. It's no accident that the people who try to come into troll are thick as pig shit. It always makes me laugh. It's like, proofread it before you write it, mate. Especially when you're trying to be a smart arse. Leave the funny stuff to the funny people. And Craig complaining, yeah, you're right. I should be happy with Newcastle fans. I should be delighted that they're moaning about our club and looking to sue the club and accusing us of X, right, and Z. You're right, mate. Silly me. I'll learn. I'll be better in the future. Anyway, and also, why are you here, bitch? Remember, you're here to watch me, bro. I didn't ask you to come in. You're here because you're Craig Curious. That's okay. Don't fight it. My wife was Craig Curious and it worked out well. Right, Sam. We wanted to keep Diaz, but he wanted an improved contract, which we didn't want to give him. So we granted his wish. That's how big clubs run. There was 2 offers, I think, maybe to Diaz that we couldn't agree a number on. And like we said at the time, you know, it was dealt with well. He didn't get toxic over it. An offer came in that Liverpool listened to, and we'll get there. Craig, you ain't read out my super chat. I haven't gotten to it yet, mate. There's about 25 I still have to get through. I will work through them. I promise. Just bear with me. You know, it's been an interesting night tonight, my friend, but I promise I'll get there for you. I do appreciate your patience. Where are we at? Yeah, that one. Eddie, how are you, sir? Do you think we're spending too much time trying to get Isak? I'm not concentrating on the deficiency, which is centre back. Hard to know from the outside, isn't it, Eddie? You'd have to feel there's been some encouragement given if Liverpool are still hanging around. And like I've said, I understand that sometimes these big transfers like that might kick on down the window. But the centre-back one, that's the one that's making me frustrated as a Liverpool fan. And I don't think I'm on my own here. You know, I've read different forums, comment sections. I wouldn't say it's anger. It's just more confusion, you know. Like, for me, as a Liverpool fan, what a window it's been. And, you know, all summer we've spoken about that. But we also talked about the end of the window and looking back to say, have we done everything we needed to? And are we stocked in the areas we want to be? And as of now, no, we do have a gap at centre-back. But look, I believe that'll be addressed. But I'm just at a loss to figure out why it's taken this long. Where are we at? Sorry, this one from Stevie. Can you give a shout out to Sainsbury's Paul? I don't know who Sainsbury's Paul is, but hello. It's funny to see how many times they got rejected. It is, but like, if I was a Newcastle fan, I'd be wondering why. What's going on? Like, let's just think this through, right? If Isak told them months ago, as per many journalists, that he wanted out, certainly gave them enough time, didn't it, to line up targets. And I can't say how strongly Newcastle went for any of the targets because I don't really follow Newcastle's transfers that much, but it definitely hasn't felt like they've had a well-executed plan this summer in the transfer market. It felt a bit reactionary, and especially if there's this real, what's the phrase I'd like to use here? You know, public briefing that they're so surprised that an offer came in or that Isak's been destabilised. That's all bullshit. They knew he wanted out, and we're just the easy person to blame in it all. But like I've said, this happens. Sometimes you just got to look inwardly, and I get it's not easy to do it and admit your own failings in these things, but Newcastle have made a mess of this window and it's Nobody else's fault. Itachi, I want us to throw them 140 million on the table so everybody shuts the fuck up. So, yeah, 1 minute it's they don't want an offer. Then it's, oh my God, they only offered 110 to 120 million. It's such a derisory offer. Yeah, sorry, we only offered a British record fee. Sorry, silly us. It's mad. The whole thing's just so mad. Newcastle won one League Cup and thought they were sitting at the big boy table. Liverpool just gave them a reality check and now they're crying. Look, I don't like being disrespectful. You know, they won a League Cup and they deservedly won a League Cup. And they beat us on the day and they were the better team on the day. And hence why I congratulated True Geordie and the Irish guy and any other Newcastle fan I knew, because they deserve to be congratulated. But this summer has just been them thinking they can say what they want about Liverpool and Liverpool fans, and there's going to be no pushback on it. Well, sorry. Today was my tipping point with that nonsense from Luke Edwards and that silliness, again, trying to paint us as the villains. It's just so tin pot. I don't know what else to say. Nick, glad you've said what you've said and you're spot on. At this point, I think Liverpool should just put in a record transfer bid and be done with it. So, even Nick, if we walked away tomorrow and didn't put in another bid and said, okay, air bad, we won't go near Isak again, do you honestly think, if you're a Newcastle fan, you're going to get the best out of him this season? Because 1, he's had no pre-season. 2, he doesn't want to be there. 3, any single little niggle he gets, he ain't playing for the pain barrier. There is no winning him back now. You have isolated him. You have lied publicly about the situation. You have had cross wires between your manager and your media team about why he isn't being picked. And you had a very easy win, which was to let him get to the family barbecue. If you really wanted to bring him back around, that was a chance to do it. And you missed that one as well. So again, their problem is internal, in my opinion, Nick. And they'll learn from it. They kept him away from a family day. I know. And then think they can win him back around. But what gets me about it all is the hypocrisy. You know, they're looking at Yo and Visa doing exactly the same thing. But that's cool. I don't see Brentford fans threatening to sue Newcastle or, big bad Newcastle. No, they understand the situation. This is football. Good players move to bigger clubs. That's the circle of football. The reason why Sesko didn't choose to sign for Newcastle, could the reason Sesko didn't choose to sign for Newcastle and the other players be they missed out on because they've seen how badly they're treating Isak? Well, look at it this way, Joel. If you're a Benjamin Sesko and you see Newcastle and you think, right, what have they got going for them right now? Champions League football, check. Some success recently, check. Good young manager, check. Passionate fan base, check. But if you're Benjamin Sesko at 22, that you're not going to be at Newcastle for your entire career. That you're looking at Newcastle as a great platform to show the world what you can do and improve as a player. And at the end of that, you hope that you've gotten good enough that you get to a super club. A Liverpool, a Real Madrid, a Barcelona, a whomever. And what message does this send to the next Isak or Sesko? That, no, we won't make it easy for you, even if it's a record fee. We will nickel and dime. We will belittle you publicly. We will throw you under the bus. And we will stunt your development. Dortmund don't do that. Dortmund have a great conveyor belt of talent that comes in, they improve, and they sell on for a profit. Because they know where they're at. They are self-aware enough to understand what stage their club is at and where they sit in European football. So, you're right. On the outside, this ain't going to endear them to any players who want to make that next step in the future and spend a few years at a club. Ushin, how are you, sir? Said, new to the channel, love it. Would fixing the defence or adding a striker like Isak make the bigger difference to our title chances? It's a really good question, Oshin. For me, mate, I'd say the defender. Look, Isak could be the difference between winning a Champions League in the latter stages or not. But I've always thought that for us, winning league titles and stuff was built off a solid defence. And I'd seen so many great Liverpool attacks over the years that was let down by maybe a leaky defence. So not enough cover at the back does concern me. So I would say bring in the centre back if I could only have one of those, or which one do I think would impact the season more. But yeah, the idea of Isak in a Liverpool shirt does, it does make you smile thinking about it. Champions League qualification is not the magic bullet many of these clubs think. Right, we asked, are we going to get Isak? Over 3,500 votes, and still 77% of people voted said yes, they do think we're going to get Isak. All right, let's keep going. Maddie said, these Geordies are a joke. They keep banging on about the cartel like Liverpool rigging the league against them. It's been us 10 years to get to this window. Yeah, I know. I had it at some points, mate, with some Villa fans as well. They love throwing around words like cartel, Big Six, all this other shit, when ultimately there's rules there that everybody voted on. And like you've said, we had to get to this window, right? We had to endure no spending for a couple of seasons, basically, to get to this window. So, I'm old enough to remember where Liverpool were still an attractive club, but had to overpay for certain targets or shop in a slightly different bracket, in the hopeful bracket. Your Lazar Markovic's of this world. But now, we're at like you said, Maddie, we're at a different point in our development. Let's keep going. The Phantom Panty Sniffer. There he is. One of my favourite account names. Good to see you, my man. Only 2 players in European football over these past 2 seasons have managed more than 10 goals and 10 assists. Can't wait to see both of them playing for Liverpool this season. Ba-da-boom. I love it. Yeah. Look, at this point, honestly, I'm not going to lose any sleep if we don't get Isak, as long as we get in another quality forward. I'd like it to be Isak, because I know that Isak's the manager's number 1 target. But if it's not Isak, I'm sure we'll move on to somebody else. If Sunderland go down, would like us to look at Dan Ballard, young centre-back who I think is very promising, one for the future. And Chris Rigg as well was another interesting player coming through there at Sunderland, who many top clubs were sniffing around and looking at. Alex said, what time's the watch-along starting? 2 o'clock, mate. 2 o'clock tomorrow. And on that, actually, if you do want to submit the player ratings or whatever, make sure you're signed up to the WhatsApp, because Connor's going to post the link into the WhatsApp. So scan that QR code there, and if you're in the WhatsApp, you'll be able to submit the player ratings. Where are we at? This one. There could be my account name, dude. My bushy eyebrows. Although for me it would have to be singular, wouldn't it? My bushy eyebrow. New follower, enjoying your content. Signing Leone would make me nervous. I cannot recall any Italian doing well at Liverpool. So I always kind of think that similarly as well, mate. But it's the age for me more than anything. I just ask, would he be ready to play this season if we needed him to in big games? And at 18, it's a big ask for anybody, isn't it? We looked at Jarell Kwanzaa, who was older and still seeing that naivety. So yeah, it would be a big call to bring in an 18-year-old centre-back. People mistake complaining for defending yourself. No, the way it is, Arnas, is people who don't like me look for any reason to confirm their own biases. And me complaining about our club being belittled, for those that don't like me, is a way to say, look, this lad's always moaning. But honestly, I don't care. I really don't. I'm going to stand up for our club and our fan base when I see necessary and when I see fit, because some of the stuff that's been written about us and our club it's been honestly embarrassing. Fake fan Matt says, up the broccoli. There you go. Boo the broccoli. Boo. Noel said, I think striker and centre back are both important. So let's ask the question, which one is more important? So let's ask that one actually. So which position is most in need for us? So let's just say forward or centre back. Right, so which position is the most in need for us of the two that we're mainly debating about? Centre back or forward? I say forward because, you know, if it is going to be Isak, it may be a wider forward or multi-faceted forward. Yeah, Daniel said, gonna start a lettuce challenge with Amarim. Oh, yeah. I was wondering where you were going with that for a second. Then I remember. No, to be fair, Daniel, I think he'll outdo 10 lettuce. Yeah, that was touch and go, that one. But yeah, I think, look, there's something about Ruben Amarim. He's a charming man, isn't he? I don't know if he'll make it at United, if he'll turn them around or not, but he's got something about him. KF said, sorry I joined late. What's the process? Newcastle just won't release Isak. Can they just trap him there? Is it possible to just sign him this window? No, they could keep him. You know, he's contracted to Newcastle, and like anybody else, if you sign a contract, you are, you know, duty bound to fulfill that contract. But it's never in anybody's interest to keep an unhappy player, especially for a prolonged period of time, because all it does is create divides in the dressing room, in the fan base. That toxicity and negativity seeps through the club, and it won't go away. And every single time something goes wrong in a season, that's the reason. Well, at least that's the reason that's pointed to for the failings of the season. So it's just not really a good sign, especially if the player's been as adamant as it looks like Isak has been in telling them he wants out. Carzoid, Santa Barbara, said, Amanda Stavely turned the lights on at Newcastle. She left, then the lights went off. There was a lot going on behind the scenes at Newcastle, I think. Yep. There was that talk about the human touch in the piece Melissa Reddy wrote, which, you know, even something Craig Hope said, it was either him or Keith Downey. The other day they said, basically, some people in and around football think the Newcastle project isn't what it was pitched to be, and players' lived experiences of that hasn't been what they'd hoped when they were coming in. They thought this was this exciting project with really good people behind the scenes who were running it, and it was, you know, the club was going to be supercharged into becoming a big European contender, and it hasn't happened. And look, I don't know Newcastle well enough to know all the ins and outs of what's happened there, but I do know that trying to just make out like we're the big bad wolves in this situation is just copium. Rain said, Craig, you're not worried about depth in our attack? Yeah, I am, but I do think it'll be sorted. So, like I've said a few times, I understand why the ESAC situation is where it is, because, you know, it's not in our control as such. But the defending situation is in our control, and we can make a bid. Like, it's not like Mark Gay just isn't for sale. You might say, right, we don't want to pay the price Crystal Palace want, but you can still have the conversation. You know, if we make one bid for Isak and we're told, no, not for sale, you know, why would you bother with the second one? And now it's almost like Newcastle are publicly crying that we're not coming in throwing £150 million on the table. Maybe it's because we don't value Isak at £150 million. So yeah, but I am worried about it, mate. Yes, 4 out and 2 in. You know, well, 1 in and 1 upgraded from Rio. You know, getting promoted up. It's still leaves us light numerically. Matt said, Gay over Leone. We need homegrown for registration purposes, and Italians really have struggled at our wonderful club, even if some were cult heroes, Balotelli, Aquilani, Barini, Chiesa. Keep up the good work, by the way. Thank you, Matt. So for me, look, Mark Gay is the sensible play as well. Apart from the homegrown aspect, which is a very fair point, he's the right age profile. He's a natural leader. He can play both sides at centre back. And he's in a contractual situation that means he's definitely gettable this summer. So yeah, I don't get why we haven't moved for Mark Gay. I really don't understand it. I get that Newcastle, or excuse me, Palace might be saying 50 and we might be thinking 35, but again, just make an offer, start the process. What's this one? So Darwin is going to wear the number 7, by the way, for Al Hilal. Thank you, Mark, sending that one on to me. And if you are joining us a little bit late and you hadn't heard, Darwin Nunez' move today has been confirmed. He's left Liverpool and joined Al Hilal on a 3-year contract, we believe. And sincerely, didn't work out here, but wishing him the best for his future. It was Mo and Wirtz, said the Phantom Panty Sniffer. There we go. Allegri said Milan don't want to sell to you. Why are Newcastle bullying them? Well, they've got the here we go from Romano on that one actually tonight, didn't they, Newcastle? Yeah, where was it? It was this one here. Malik Thiaw to Newcastle, here we go. Centre-back for Eddie Howe. Agreement in place, €40 million package with add-ons included. AC Milan verbally accepted the proposal. Joe Cole, by the way, don't really agree with a lot of stuff Joe Cole has said, but he said, Liverpool have made a massive statement in signing Florian Wirtz. When you see a player who can slow the game down like he can when he's on the ball, he's absolutely brilliant. I think it's the signing of the summer. When was the last time Liverpool made a signing like this? For me, it's a statement signing. He's the best young player in the world and they've just spent over £100 million to get him. He's just a natural footballer. The more we talk about Liverpool and their new signings, I just can't see past them for the title now. For me, they're the most clear favourites to win the league we've had in the last 10 years. The best have just gotten better and they've raised the bar. Yeah, I don't often agree with Joe Cole, but I absolutely agree with that sentiment. And it made me smile, the amount of people who tried to laugh at what Liverpool paid for Florian Wirtz. It will be a bargain in my eyes over the course of time. It's certainly a huge amount of money, but I know why it was a huge amount of money. And this is what gets me about Newcastle's arrogance with Isak and the price. We've just bought what many footballers describe as the best young talent in world football. Now, of course, Lamine Yamal that's a different conversation. But we've bought the best available at 116 million. So signing Isak, who, with all due respect, isn't the best striker in the world, he's a damn good one, and he's right up there in the top tier. But why should we just pay 150 because that's just some arbitrary number Newcastle have pulled out their arse? Maddie said Newcastle want everyone to feel sorry for them because they can't have that cheat code. They just want black and white cartel. Well, they thought they were going to be able to just throw money at everything when the PIF took over Newcastle. They thought it was just going to be a formality now that the cash was going to flow, but hasn't been the case because, to be fair to the owners, they've tried to work within the rules. I've always given Newcastle credit for that since they've been taken over. They've never taken the piss and tried to break the rules, but all this talk of cartel and stuff, it's just so... It's so easy, isn't it, to just point the finger and say, big bad wolf, but how about running the club better? How about getting to a point where you're in the big six? Jason, how are you, sir? Said Nunez has the speed, movement and tricks, only lacks the goal and precision. Will it click and will he be like Chelsea losing Salah? Will it be a heartache in the near future? So, Jason, I couldn't say categorically no, because like I've said, Darwin always had all the tools. You can see why Klopp fell in love, if you want, with him, because on his day, as Newcastle found out when he came off the bench up there, the dude can do it all. But we need consistency of performance, and we just didn't get that. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me to see him do huge numbers somewhere, because we know he has the skill set to do it. Isak wants out and wants Liverpool. Newcastle. I didn't want to say it in one word because I don't like using that word. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't like using that word to describe anything around football, even 66. Louis Miller said, I've heard a few things recently about Jota and his sad loss means to Liverpool financially. Most seems trollish though, insurance claims, etc. Thoughts? So, I've never tried to find out the financial side of it because for me, my only thought process was, is his family going to be okay? And I mean that financially because obviously emotionally, no, it's a very tough time for Diogo's parents, his wife, his kids. So for me, knowing that his family are going to be made whole financially and will be looked after in that sense, the club can, for I don't know the ins and outs of the financials, but the club can get on with it. Like, you know, I'm sure there is something, but even if there isn't, it's not going to be the be all and end all for a football club. But, you know, once the family are made okay, and Liverpool do everything that they can to help, and of course they have, they've been magnificent in the way they've been sympathetic and respectful towards the Ogos family. But I don't know, man, I don't look into the money side of it because it feels disrespectful to talk about the money part of it, to be honest with you, because either way, you know, how do you value someone's life? And you know, Diogo, you can see the outpouring of emotion from not just Liverpool fans, obviously from Wolves fans and football fans in general. It was just one of those just incredibly sad situations. Ampress said, let's not forget, even if we don't get Isak, we've had a great window. If we move on to another 9 and get a centre-back, we're going to be fine. Oh, 100%. Please don't think I'm in any way upset with the window. Tonight I came on ranting because I'm just sick of the Newcastle nonsense around Isak and the belittling of our club. But yeah, look, I'm frustrated at the centre-back situation. Maybe frustrated isn't even the right word. Anxious is probably a fairer word at the centre-back situation because I maybe naively assumed that when you sold Kwanzaa, you'd have somebody ready to go. And that hasn't seemed to be the case, although we know Liverpool are looking at a few different centre-backs. Having sold Darwin now as well as Diaz, you would have to assume that Liverpool are going to go into the market and bring in another forward. And I still truly do believe that'll be Isak. Virginia. Craig Hope just posted that Eddie Howe had said he might have to sell Isak. Did he? Sweet. Don't have that one to hand, but I have, what's this one? I've read a few bits here tonight. So Romano said Alexander Isak doesn't want to extend his contract. He wants the Liverpool move and the deal remains absolutely on, absolutely concrete and absolutely likely. If they can't get Isak, Barcola will be the top target, but at the moment, their focus remains, at least this week, we'll see what happens next week, their focus remains on Isak. Keith Downey had some quotes from Eddie Howe on Isak. He said, are you hopeful you can change Alexander Isak's mind? And Eddie Howe said, if it was that easy, I'd have done it yesterday. Also, Mark Douglas of the iNewspaper, speaking about Isak or speaking about transfers, Eddie Howe said, we hope that Anthony Gordon is okay. Fingers crossed. He suffered a twisted ankle. On Isak not for sale message, he said, it's not something I'm aware of. No knowledge of that. So, Newcastle fans, anybody got anything to say there towards Mr. Luke Edwards of The Telegraph, who said, you know, the club was saying very clearly that they're disgusted with Liverpool and that he's not for sale? And then Newcastle's own fucking manager comes out in a press conference and said on the not for sale message, it's not something I'm aware of. No knowledge of that. It's almost as if someone's full of shit. On Tior, he said, I'm not updated on everything that's happened. Speaking about Isak, he said, he is contracted. He's our player. The club will make a decision on his future. I feel like Edwards has been trolling this summer to some extent, almost looking to cause the outpouring of emotion. But the thing that made me smile today was as soon as he posted that article, there was Barry Backseatman LFC who said, "This just makes me feel even more that we're going to sign him." And that's exactly what I was thinking when I seen it as well. I've very same sentiment as Barry. Right, where are we at? So the poll that we have running at the minute, and we're going to have about 20 minutes left in tonight's stream. So any other questions, please do throw them in. I'll do my best to move through the rest of the news as well. What position is most in need for us, forward or centre back? Eddie, thank you, mate. Appreciate you. Eddie Jarvis, thank you, bro. So that gentleman earlier on, I hope I've gotten to his super chat. I've worked through all of them now, so I hope I've gotten to that gentleman's from earlier on. But if I didn't, and it was one I had still missed, mate, please do let me know in the comments, and I will adhere to get it for you. Right, where are we? David McCormick, thank you, bro, for the super sticker as well. Just seen that one, appreciate you. Right, let's look through some more of the news. So again, just to confirm, I'm sure you're all aware of this, but Liverpool posted tonight to say Liverpool FC can confirm Darwin Nunez has completed a permanent transfer to Al Hilal subject to international clearance. Everybody at the club would like to thank Darwin for his contributions and wish him and his family all the best in the future. Here's a very interesting one that Transfer News Live posted. Vitinha has a release clause of €135 million in his PSG contract this summer. It drops down to €90 million next summer. Do we reckon Madrid make a play for Vitinha? Because they're still looking for that like Luka Modric replacement longer term. And next summer, maybe if it dropped to 90 million, as per that report, I could see a world where maybe Real Madrid there going knocking. On Ben Doak, by the way, The Athletic have said Leeds United are in, well, they're thinking of looking at Ben Doak. He said Leeds Chiefs are in debate whether to try to sign Ben Doak, said The Athletic. So keep an eye on that one as well. What else is there? There's this piece here from Caught Offside that said Liverpool are one of the clubs who are monitoring Brighton midfielder Carlos Baleba. Costas, Lewis Steele, speaking with our friends at Anfield Index, said Costas Tsimikas could be allowed to leave Liverpool before the transfer window shuts. Here's an interesting one. Curtis Jones was building his ideal Liverpool player, past and present. Excuse me. And these are the choices he went for. Best left foot, he went for Mohamed Salah. Best right foot, Cody Gakpo. Quickest, Darwin Nunez. Strongest, Ibrahima Konate. Best free kick taker, not 66. He went for Harvey Elliott. Best skiller, Luis Diaz. Best footballing IQ, Alexis McAllister. That's a pretty good collection of answers from Curtis Jones. Very interesting. So best left foot Salah, best right foot Gakpo, quickest Darwin, strongest Ibu, best free kick taker Harvey, best skill set Diaz, and best footballing IQ Alexis McAllister. Good answers from Curtis. Yeah, I hadn't read it all, and when I said best free kick taker, I was looking, I was fully sure it was going to say 66, but he didn't. He said Harvey Elliott. That's interesting. Why do I call him 66? Give him some respect. I don't want to give him any respect because he didn't give us any respect. So, yeah, I've been pretty clear on that. I have no respect for 66. I'm not going to belittle him, but I don't have any respect. He lied through his gritted teeth, manipulated everybody for a whole season to get what he wanted. And I don't have to sit here and applaud him for leaving. So I will show him the same fucking respect he showed the rest of us when he was lying through his gritted teeth, which is none. Grim Reaper said Craig, Newcastle is trying to act like a big club, but in reality, they're an 8-year-old child in a car garage, all the tools, but no idea what they're doing. What's this? Neverland said Indy recognised Ornstein, said £29 million bid for Gay in. I hope that's the case. And even earlier on, by the way, like I said, I never use the snake term or anything like that around him because I just think that's unfair. But I'm perfectly comfortable in my take on how that situation played out. So, you know, each to their own. If you want to use his name and talk about him normally, no props. You do you. Ooh, reported. Ooh, sweet. What's this? So, this from Craig Hope. Credit anything Liverpool for this. They said, for the first time, Eddie Howe has given a public indication that he would potentially be open to selling Alexander Isak. My feelings are if the terms are right, Newcastle would explore a sale. So, has anybody been asking Mr. Luke Edwards where he got his information from then? Because genuinely, he seems to be the only person that has been briefed what he claims he's been briefed. Because every other journalist, ones we've actually heard of, have been saying that, Newcastle kind of indicating that probably will sell. But, if you're going to give a Billy Big Bollocks, at least try and back it up, mate, and tell us where you're getting it, because you just keep saying the board, the board, the board. Who? What else is there? I'd love to see Liverpool go in for Vitinha next year. Look, he's a great player. He is a great player, but I don't know. Would I like him? I wouldn't say no. He's a very good footballer, Vitinha. But, he's probably very comfortable where he is as well. He's in a good team with a good manager, just won the Champions League. So, he'd probably stay put for a while longer and see what other trophies they can win. I mean, what a year they've had. And look, they were deserving winners of the Champions League this year. It's certainly the best team I've seen Liverpool play all season. Is the Chelsea format and transfers the way forward? Pretty much all young players signed up at 7-year. Palmer's there, 2023. Yeah, it's a really interesting point, Craig Hughes, that you've made, because it does feel like the way football transfers are moving now is that clubs are trying to tie these younger players up to longer contracts so they don't have this 4-year run down the deal scenario, putting them onto 7-year deals, which of course strengthens the club's take. I guess it's a double-edged sword to some extent, because if you brought in a player on a 7-year deal that didn't work out, if they're on decent wages, it might be difficult to move them on. But so far, that really hasn't seemed to be a problem for Chelsea. They've always found a buyer for the players they wanted to move on. So it's a very unique approach to the way they've done it, but it seems to be working for Chelsea. Paul Lightfoot said, love the show, keep up the good work, watch every day, really makes my day. Thank you, Paul. That means a lot, mate. Appreciate that. Apparently Newcastle never tried to speak to any of the players before putting a bid in to try and sign them. I don't know, but it's been a mess. Even just look at the sheer amount of players that they've gone through to try to sign. It's not like they went into this window and had almost like, let's not be naive here. A lot of the time when clubs are preparing for a window, by the time the window opens, a lot of these deals are already most of the way agreed. Even if it's not between the clubs agreed, you kind of have the parameters of where you're going to go with it. Newcastle in this window feel very much like it's a reactionary window rather than having a clear plan that they're looking to see through. Itachi said, I think we make 3-0 tomorrow. Salah, Szoboszlai and Wirtz the score. Really not sure what to expect tomorrow, score-wise or performance-wise, but looking forward to it nonetheless. David said, who do we sign, a forward or a centre-back? I think we get both, but I would rather we got the centre-back in first. But then again, our friend earlier on who asked about, are we worried about the depth up front? I have to say now we have a need to bring in another body. While there was still the uncertainty maybe around some of the players moving on, you could say, well, let's wait and see. But now we've sold Darwin tonight. That's done. Diaz is done. Chiesa will be done. And obviously Diogo was something that was out of anybody's control. But we've brought in one new forward. Maybe you could argue Wirtz is a forward, but he's an attacking mid in my head, or a 10. And then you've got young Rio, who, look, I've no problem being promoted up. He's a great talent, but definitely feels like we need another versatile forward. Let's forget about Isak. He's overpriced, and it's a messy situation at Newcastle. Look, if Arna decided tomorrow move on, I wouldn't lose a second sleep over it. We know that Alexander Isak is Arna's number one target, so you'd hope the manager would get his number one target. But look, as a fan, I'd like Isak, but he's not the be-all and end-all in my mind, because we've already done the hard business this summer. Like, getting Florian Wirtz in, to me, was the summer. That was the deal. That was the one. Kirkes and Frimpong, very good additions, but Florian Wirtz was the statement of the summer for me. That was a real, we mean business. How many games is Grav suspended for? Just the one, Anthony, mate. Just the one. I know there was some confusion at the end of the season, but it wasn't violent conduct or anything. So it was the 2 yellows, just or straight red. I can't remember, but it was just one game he's suspended for. Was it a second yellow? Wasn't it? But he's just suspended for one, and it's not tomorrow. It's the game against Bournemouth. Echo says we're interested in Araujo. Is that Araujo from Benfica? I'm assuming it's not Ronald Araujo, right? I'm sure it's the one from Benfica. Matt Hearn said, one to keep an eye on. Juve have supposedly offered discussions on Dusan Vlahovic. They need money, so fishing for suitors. So there was talk of an offer there to Newcastle for Vlahovic, for Tonali. I read something, Matt, the other night on that said the Juventus were hoping to try to convince Newcastle to sell Tonali, and we're going to offer Vlahovic and Douglas Luiz, I think I'd read, as two options. Philip, how are we? Philip O'Byrne said, hi Craig, I think it'll be Leone in this window and Gay next year when Canade leaves. Yeah, look, it's hard not to have faith in the recruitment with the way this window's gone. It's hard not to have faith in Arna when he certainly seems to be a man that knows what he's doing and what he wants. So, I'll just rest that bit easier once we do get a centre-back in. Depending, if it's Gay, if it's Leone, I'll just feel a little bit more comfortable knowing we've got one in. Free Isak, said Sean. Right, so we've asked, what position are we most in need from centre-back and a forward? And 82% of you guys that voted said we're most in need of a centre-back. And I agree. But I do also think we are light up top now that we've sold Darwin. So I think both positions at this point have to be filled, because we're making sales. And look, if we look at the old net spendometer, it's about roughly 104 million net now after the Darwin sale. If we sell, let's say, Chiesa, or we sell Elliott, that'll come down more. So you would expect a bit more spending as well. Leone versus Gay poll. Yeah, fuck it. Why not? Saturday night. Why not? Right, so. Right, so pick one to sign now, Leone or Gay. And we'll see Has to be a quick 10-15 minute poll, but pick one to sign now. Giovanni Leone or Mark Gay. We did an ESAC poll. Sorry, I thought somebody said do an ESAC poll. We did one earlier on. I think it was still 77% people think we'd still sign him. Stephen O'Reilly, thank you, bro. Appreciate you. I hope people understood why I came in ranting tonight at the start of the stream, because it certainly wasn't aimed at our community or my own fan base, as in Liverpool fans. It was very much intended towards the gaslighting of Newcastle fans from the likes of Luke Edwards and some others who are just baiting, is the phrase I'm going to use. I would say trolling, but baiting feels truer. What have we got here? Jay-Z Hawk said, what if we trained Rio on the right and we brought in another left side winger? Don't have a replacement for Salah, and Frimpong could focus on right back. Look, I'm absolutely fine, mate, with players like young Rio being used on either side. I think in the modern day, it's almost expected to have inverted wingers. But like you said, mate, there's nothing wrong with players being able to play off both sides. I mean, Sadio Mane is a great example. Sadio Mane was right-sided winger for us when he first came in, and then became a brilliant left-sided player for us when Mohamed Salah went to the right. So absolutely possible, sir. Absolutely possible. We bid Gay 29 million. We spoke about that, Mohamed, earlier, mate, and I hope that's true, because at least we've started that conversation. Do I think we really bid on the eve of the Community Shield? I don't know. I don't know about that one, but let's wait and see if others report the offer. Productions SG said, I hope we don't sign Isak for anything over 130, leave Newcastle with an unhappy striker for another year and watch his value plummet. Then either sign him for less or move on to somebody else. The Darts Guru said, hi Craig, joined late. Just think how boring it's getting. You just don't show any passion. I know. I'm trying to be passionate, mate, but you know me, I'm Billy Boring. Eddie, how are we, my man? Said, do you think people have changed their opinion on FSG now because the opinion will, or because my opinion will never change? Oh, look, I can't speak for everybody, Eddie. Has my opinion of them changed? I think I'd have to say somewhat yes. Still will have a stronger answer to this as the window closes, but I've always accused them of lacking ambition and a desire to win. I can't really make that same claim towards them after bringing in the likes of Florian Wirtz and Kirkes and Ekatike. If we back that up with Isak and another centre-back, it will certainly have gone a long way with me to shutting me up about the transfers. There's been other stuff over the years, but look, every ownership group will make mistakes. You hope they learn from them. But the best case scenario for me with owners is always that we don't really talk about them, you know? They sign the checks and we get on with football. So the less we have to talk about owners, the more we're talking about the players and the manager, the happier I am as a fan anyway. But yeah, look, I think if you don't change your stance in the face of clear evidence, I think then you're talking about an agenda, about something. But for me, I've always been honest, and I said, I want them to spend. If they spend and show that ambition, you won't hear a peep from me calling them out over it, and I will be as good as my word on it. This has been a really good summer, and I'm pleasantly surprised. Mohammed, I love you, Craig. Thanks for reading my comment. Love from Kenya and Yemen. My pleasure, mate, and thank you for joining us. Appreciate your support. Jason Rodriguez, how are we, Jason? Said, I feel like we will lose Canade and can get Gay for free or cheap in the winter, so I'd rather sign a young centre-back now. I can understand that thought process, mate. Yeah, I hope we don't lose Canade for what it's worth, but like you've said, I can understand where you're thinking. There isn't really no such thing as a free transfer, though. We would have to pay a chunk of a signing on fee to somebody who is going to be available on a free, so you're always committing a significant amount of cash either way. Do you think Wirtz will be better than Coutinho? Oh, easily. Easily. Look, I enjoyed Felipe Coutinho when he played for us, but Wirtz is another level. Like, I never thought Felipe Coutinho could win a Ballon d'Or, but genuinely, I think you can easily say there's a chance Wirtz wins a Ballon d'Or in his career. And that, I don't think that's even hyperbole or trying to blow smoke up his arse. He is that good. Did you hear the Arna interview talking about Wirtz will help us with low blocks? I did, yeah. I did defence Cohen, excuse me. Yeah, and he's right. He's right. One thing I noticed when we played Athletic Club Bilbao was how quickly we moved the ball between the lines. And Wirtz and Soboslai were a huge part of that, as well as Ryan Gravenberch. So, yeah, the ability for somebody like him to move so quickly and almost process the game in real time or ahead of time sometimes, that ability in and around the tight, congested penalty area could make a world of difference. If he was Billy Bourne, you wouldn't have our attention every night. Oh, we were only having a joke, mate. I might not be everyone's cup of tea, but I definitely wouldn't say I'm dull. I do love an expletive, and I do love a passionate rant. Olise next summer. Um, I don't think so, but he's a great player. Really, really good player. I kind of even underappreciated Michael Olise when he was here in the Prem, but he's a quality player. Ryan Irving said, "What's the latest on Isak? I heard the Newcastle has told him he cannot leave. Eddie Howe seems to be speaking as if they'd accepted he was going to leave. What's your thoughts?" My thoughts are that the realistic, common sense people here, Eddie Howe, Keith Downey, Craig Hope, you know, are all realistic. There's no denying that some of these guys are disappointed. You can see it written over Craig Hope's face. He loves the city. His family were celebrating the League Cup win. Understandable that he feels a little bit deflated. But I have to say, I have grown to have incredible respect for Craig Hope, the way he's dealt in this window. I thought he's been honest, forthright, and even the night where he accused Liverpool of bottling it, I understood that it was emotions. I got that from him, but I think he's been brilliant, and a voice of sense in amongst all of this madness at times. And so is Keith Downey of Sky. He's been really good as well. Jason said, "Chat on the discussion of strikers. How much has the role of Premier League changed in the past 6 years? New age. It's kind of changing around a bit. It's almost like Isak is the old mold of striker again, and that kind of 6'3" number 9 is coming back into vogue a little bit." Craig, would you be happy with those two centre backs, but we forgot about Isak? So if we didn't bring in Isak and we brought in two centre backs, I'd probably edge towards keeping Elliott more. I know Elliott isn't an out and out attacker, but it is another attacking option, which I feel we'd be light of if we didn't bring in somebody now that we've lost Darwin, Diaz, and probably Chiesa as well. Would like good options other than Canade. Doesn't convince me, and you have a feeling he'll drop more clangers this season. That's why, Sean, I'm so positive and upbeat and enthusiastic about the idea of signing Mark A. I think his consistency would be a huge plus for us. How are you today, Craig? I'm all right, real sport, man. I'm all right. Yeah, I'm okay. Came in a little bit hot today when we started, but look, I'm going to start bringing this to a close. Really quickly, we asked, pick one to sign now. Leone or Gay, and over 80% of people are saying Mark Gay because it's probably the sensible option. So look, tomorrow we start our coverage for the Community Shield from 2 p.m. Hope you can join us for that. We'll have full watch along, match reaction, player ratings, everything we normally do on a proper match day. So yeah, have a good night. I hope wherever you're doing this Saturday, it's a good one. And I will see you tomorrow. Much love, my friends. Appreciate you. Bye-bye.